I think if we really look at it, from the perspective that if CJ Stroud doesn't have the year he had, where he, had a great season, broke some records in his rookie season, if he doesn't have that year, people don't call Bryce Young a bust. People don't say Bryce Young had such a terrible year. You look at his situation, offensive line was terrible. The offense coordinator, the head coach were switching over play call duties all season. The offensive line was terrible. The receiver room was terrible. Mingo, you had expectations for him. He didn't show it. Adam Thielen was the best thing about the receiver room. He had 1,000 yards. But other than him, it really was nothing. And you had the worst tight end room in the NFL. So Bryce Young really didn't have he had limited resources. He got sacked 65 times, and the guard position was rotated. He had 7 or 8 starters at the guard positions. Insane. So now they bring in Dave Canales as their head coach, a guy that, brought Geno Smith back, revived his career. Baker Mayfield had his best season with him and got paid for it. The Bucs had really good success. That offense looked good. Baker looked like Baker again. The Baker that we thought was going to come out of Oklahoma and be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, have success right out the gates. And, he very much did a couple seasons. He had a couple good years, took Cleveland to the playoffs, but nothing consistent. But he brought that success back with Baker. So this guy has a track record of doing great things with quarterbacks. And I think he could bring back Bryce Young too. And Bryce Young last season, the flaws were there. He struggled. He's not the type of guy to make a terrible situation better. He needs things around him. He needs weapons. He needs a good offensive line, and he can flourish and be the quarterback people expect him to be. But if things are bad, he's going to be bad. But within last season, the anticipation throws were there. The accuracy was there. He plays really well for a quarterback his size. And he's not the type to break tackles, not the type to get away from pressure. And it's really hard to do that with the offensive line up the middle, the guys they had in that rotation. So I think this year, they heavily invested in the guard positions. They, signed Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, 2 solid guards. At the time, I thought it was an overpay, but you got to do what you can to get your quarterback some help. So those 2 guys are, pretty solid guards. And weapons-wise, Deontay Johnson, you traded for him, one of the best route runners in the league. Pretty solid receiver. He had a 1,000-yard season with Pittsburgh. This is a guy that can flourish in this offense. Canales has had success with multiple weapons in the offense. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin with the Bucs, Seattle, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf. So a lot of guys are going to be able to get their touches and their targets. So they have a good trio of receivers. Xavier Legette, receiver from South Carolina, too. I expect him to have a really good season in this offense. Kind of like a DK Metcalf, but I think he's about 6'2". A big body receiver, a guy that could run and a guy that can make catches. He could go up there and come down with some, 50-50 balls. So him and Bryce Young, they're going to hopefully build that connection early in camp. I think, Xavier Legette has an injury right now. Nothing crazy that will set him back, but he should be ready for the regular season. And this is a guy that I think he could put up 1,000 yards in his rookie season and be one of the top rookie receivers along with Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, and Marvin Harrison. So I expect big things out of him. And Adam Thielen, he could move back and be receiver 3, as he should be. At his age right now, he shouldn't be your number 1 receiver. Let's be real. And Jatavion Sanders, a tight end from Texas, last 2 seasons put up 1,000 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns, 99 catches. He's elusive. He's a receiver in a tight end's body, 6'4". He can outrun linebackers and he can outsize corners. So I'm really excited about him. I think he could start for the Panthers at tight end because Tommy Tremble, Ian Thomas, these are guys that really didn't do much for you. Hayden Hurst, he moved on and went to another team. But the Panthers, getting Jatavion Sanders, he has all the traits of a guy that could perform really well in his rookie season. I think him and Brock Bowers are going to be the 2 best rookie tight ends. And I could see him having a really big year. 600 yards, maybe 500 yards. So the weapons they added to this offense with the offensive line improving, Bryce Young is set up to succeed this year. I think he's going to have a really good second year. And, he was top 20 in passing with one of the worst offenses in the NFL. And I think Jonathan Brooks is a pretty solid running back, a guy that, clean tear ACL injury he's coming off of. So I think he should be pretty solid. Him, Miles Sanders, and Chuba Hubbard. I think that running back room is really good, and that's going to help Bryce Young and ease the pressure off him having to throw so much, having him, take the pressure off him. The run game allowed that to get going. The improvement at the guard positions, the tackles weren't the problem. Center's pretty solid too when he's healthy. So if that offensive line is healthy, that run game's going to be able to get going, and the passing game should be better. So Bryce Young, I expect him to have a really good year too, and all those bust narratives about him, people saying that about him, is going to be gone. I think Bryce Young, he could be a top 15 quarterback this next season. Some people thought the NFC North was going to be the worst division in football this season. They thought it was going to be as bad as the NFC South.